Hello everyone and welcome back to the only theories out there that combines the lore of Magic the Gathering with the physical cards you can win. I'm Simon and this is Friday Night Lore. Another Friday means another FNL. Put yourself in the mood for Friday Night Magic with some awesome lore and a chance to add to your collection. This week we continue the story unfolding on Innistrad with the advent of Eldritch Moon. We have a good understanding of the players involved right now, but still, there's a centuries-old grudge which needs to be settled. Sorin Markov, the ancient vampiric planeswalker of Innistrad, was once the cold mentor to a young Nahiri the Lithomancer. Although he taught her much about the powers of being a planeswalker, he taught her less about his true nature. Nahiri grew to see him as a friend, and even Sorin at one point felt the same. But the nature of this vampire is and has always been one of self-preservation. When the Eldrazi Titans came to devour the many worlds of the multiverse, Sorin spelled the eventual end to his beloved Innistrad. Luckily, he and his two allies, including Nahiri and the dragon Ugin, managed to secure these otherworldly monsters on Zendikar, Nahiri's home. Although all agreed to come help should their jail weaken, none came to Nahiri's aid when they broke free. Ugin was dead, and Sorin, well, self-preservation came first. Sorin had to secure his own world. Although the Eldrazi were locked away, they could eventually escape, or a new threat may be born of the Blind Eternities. Either way, Innistrad needed its own shield. He built the Hell Vault and created the Angel Avacyn to serve as his own planar prison and warden. Discovering the betrayal of her former friend, Nahiri traveled to Innistrad seeking vengeance. Sorin was weakened after creating Avacyn, but still managed to put up a fight with the Young One, as he called her. Her fury turned to Avacyn when the angel came to protect her master, causing Sorin to again protect his self-interest. He cast his former protege into the Hell Vault, locking her away in pure darkness surrounded by demons for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of contemplation and planning. When the Hell Vault was finally destroyed, Nahiri began her quest for vengeance. As Zendikar has bled, so will Innistrad. By our current point in the story, Nahiri had already summoned her promised doom to Innistrad, the last Eldrazi Titan, Emrakul. She's twisted everything Sorin had once called his, from the very stone of Markov Manor, forcing him to unmake his own Angel Avacyn, to every warped human and creature now taken by the pull of Emrakul. In the eyes of Sorin, Innistrad was doomed. With no hope for his world, Sorin Markov now seeks only revenge. He wants Nahiri's head for what she's done. He brings with him the entire host of Innistrad vampires, sprung by a new alliance with another ancient and powerful vampire lord, Olivia Voldaren. With legions of forces, he marches on his ancestral home of Markov Manor, now a twisted ruin, hoping to end the Lithomancer's madness. Yet, Nahiri had gathered an army of her own, cultists and fanatics who saw her as a god, a harbinger of a new world. They weren't wrong. She did bring a monster that changed reality on Innistrad, but she knew neither of them were gods. Nevertheless, they were devoted and could hold weapons. That's all she needed. But, even at 10-1, these farmers and poor folk wouldn't stand a chance against Sorin's heavily armored vampires. So, she brought with her a little collection of her own. Nahiri watched as Sorin, far in the distance, gave the order for the initial forces to enter the manor. This was it, the beginning of the Lithomancer's true vengeance. As she has wept, so will Sorin. As the vampires poured in, she grabbed a sword from the molten rock around her. Stoneforging was always her favorite hobby. The hot blade cut through the vampires as if they were warm butter. Their armor proved useless. The deaths of these bloodsuckers was a good start, but she only wanted one, and he was still too far away. More and more forces of vampires came forth, as Nahiri unleashed her cultists to help thin the crowd. Stone pillars rose from nowhere, crushing, stabbing, and devouring all who challenged her. Through the turmoil of battle, she searched for any sign of Sorin. His flowing white hair, his red ruby encrusted armor, anything. Then, across the field, she saw the cruel yellow eyes she knew so well, and for a moment, they both stared right at each other. The rage bellowed inside Nahiri, building up in her throat and erupting in a scream. "Sorin!" she called out. Stone walls rose, splitting the battle in half, creating a secure walkway between Nahiri and Sorin. It would be the two planeswalkers at the final moment. She called to him, recognizing that he too had been fighting this entire time. The blood on his blade and face were evidence of this. Nahiri jabbed at Sorin's recent loss of Avacyn, a wound that had hardly had time to heal. It was enough to push the vampiric lord of Innistrad over the edge. From his fingers, Sorin weaved a mist as black as night, death magic, a favorite of his. He had no intentions of finishing this in an honorable duel. Nahiri's death would be enough. The magic lingered, then jolted through the air, attempting to find its mark, but it never did. Rather, the strings of death redirected itself and hit Sorin directly in the chest, an outcome he hadn't calculated. Again, he tried to use his spells, and again, it backfired. Nahiri laughed in pleasure. Sorin had clearly learned nothing during his time with her own Zendikar. Magic flows through ley lines. The ley lines follow stone. She controlled stone, and thus controlled the ley lines. Magic goes where she wills it. She walked over to Sorin, who was now on his knees in crippling pain, although he tried not to show it. Nahiri walked around him, blade in hand. She had summoned Emrakul to his doorstep, yet still he saw her as a child. With her molten blade close to the vampire planeswalker's throat, Nahiri hears a voice echo out, this one far more sarcastic than Sorin's. Another vampire, this one a woman with bright red hair, floating through the air while wearing pitch black armor. She exuded the power that came from being an ancient being of her race, a power her and Sorin shared. She wasn't a planeswalker, but was just as strong as Sorin. Her name was Olivia, and although she found Sorin's defeat intriguing, she had made a deal with him. He held up his end, now it was time to uphold hers. This Nahiri person had to be defeated. She sent her personal guard of black armored vampires to intercept the Lithomancer before she could finish off her ultimate opponent. Through the ground, Nahiri channeled her earth-shattering magic. Where she once had but one blade, 4 other copies sprang forth. She wielded one in each hand as the others fanned around her. The vampires threw themselves upon their own deaths. Her vengeance wasn't this Olivia's to hand out or deny. She had earned it, though Sorin was quick to remind her that 1,000 years ago, he too had the chance to kill Nahiri but chose instead to spare her. Locking her away in the Hell Vault was a courtesy. Nahiri was repulsed by his words. 1,000 years in darkness surrounded by demons? That's how Sorin describes a courtesy? On that note, the stone structures around them began to lurch and screech together in a sound almost unbearable to hear. Magical leystones erupted from beneath the manor, a hell vault of her own making, carrying a gift far more destructive than demons. As the container imploded, it hatched an army of Eldrazi corrupted creatures, each more deformed with lattice and tentacles than the last. Olivia hissed as her and her army changed their attentions to the emerging horrors. Nahiri backed away from the chaos, stepping back into the thralls of Markov Manor. Sorin had regained enough strength to pursue his foe, taking one of her cultists and draining him completely of his blood. It was the first time Nahiri had ever seen Sorin feed. He truly looked the monster she knew he was. He made his way faster up the dismembered buttresses and floating leystones. No magic this time, just steel and blood. Nahiri threw stone pillars and spikes as Sorin danced and darted around with unbelievable speed. He was quick, far quicker than Nahiri had anticipated. Hitting him would be a matter of blind luck. She tried shifting his footing, but he jumped through the air with a grace foreign to her, and that's saying something for a core from Zendikar. Her people are used to climbing and jumping from precarious positions, but Sorin was in a league all his own. Her eyes tried in vain to keep up with the glistening of white hair, but eventually she lost sight of him. Her vision darted, trying to find some hint of Sorin, but the only thing that gave away his position was the sound of his steel blade rushing towards her. All Nahiri could do was sink into the stone wall behind her, instinctively avoiding the strike. Sorin jabbed that she should have enjoyed her stay in the Hell Vault. She seemed comfortable embedded in stone, and honestly, she was. The coldness of the masonry held her tightly, but her concentration was broken as she felt something pierce her skin, entering her side. Sorin had stabbed through the very stone and struck her. The rock lifted her up and released her near the ceiling of Markov Manor. She fell and landed on a summoned pillar, but lost her grip and fell even further, blood covering her hand as she attempted to quell the bleeding. She held herself up, but only barely, as Sorin moved in. He gave her advice, a final lesson from a mentor to his protege. You should have killed me when I was down. Maybe she should have, but it doesn't matter what happens now. She gestured to an open side of Markov Manor. In the distance, Emrakul. Your world is over, she said. No angel will come to the rescue this time. The words fell heavy on Sorin. What you've taken from me in Avacyn, I'll take from you in blood. With one swift moment, the vampire sunk his teeth deep into Nahiri's neck and veins. She can feel the very life being drained from her as the blood shifted its flow. Each heartbeat was coupled with burning agony, but she had found her opening. The stone around them shifted and pillars stabbed through Sorin's legs and chest, grabbing and pulling him in a tight embrace. The stone twisted and turned so that Sorin was facing in the direction of Emrakul. The stone churned, grinding at his insides just enough to cause agonizing pain, but not too much to outpace his natural healing. The pain made it impossible for Sorin to concentrate and thus was unable to planeswalk away. He was stuck in stone, forced to watch as Emrakul devoured his world, but he lived, Nahiri's own form of courtesy. With that, Nahiri the Lithomancer planeswalked away from Innistrad. When the battle was over, Olivia Voldaren found the embedded Sorin Markov, and was more delighted than he had hoped. He demanded that she release him, but she pondered over why she'd do such a thing. Nahiri had left the world, her end of the bargain was complete. Him being stuck in stone was none of her concern, and she rather enjoyed the sound of Olivia, Lord of Innistrad. Sorin told Olivia to look over to Emrakul. This was the fate of Innistrad. Why become its lord when it would only last a day? Free him, he can help fight the Eldrazi. She simply responded with, "Avacyn is dead and you're where you are. I think it's quite good," as she turned and floated away. Emrakul and Nahiri's promised end was all Sorin could see. And that's where the story leaves us. Nahiri may not have gotten her final revenge, but she got something arguably sweeter. Sorin stuck in stone to watch as Innistrad slowly dies. We don't know where Nahiri planeswalked to. She may very well still be on Innistrad. All we really know is that Sorin is in a horrible position. But is it a position that he truly deserved? Is Nahiri justified in her vengeance, or has she gone a little off the rails? Let's note that her homeworld of Zendikar is actually safe. The Gatewatch destroyed the Eldrazi there, although her and Sorin are unaware. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think Nahiri's justice is too much, or did Sorin deserve it? And by leaving that comment, you'll be entering yourself to win this week's FNL card giveaway. For this vengeance-filled lore video, I figured a fitting card would be Sorin Grim Nemesis. Like I said, to enter for your chance to win this card, all you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment on this video. At the end of the week, I'll choose one at random and announce them at the end of next week's FNL. Before we end this episode, let's unveil last week's giveaway winner. Last FNL, we discovered Liliana's motivation and potential role to come in Eldritch Moon, and thus I was giving away a copy of her Planeswalker card. And the winner of this Liliana Fest Planeswalker is... Crystal Griffith. Congrats! Just shoot me an email in the back end of my channel or send me a message via Twitter to claim your prize. If you haven't already, go ahead and follow me on Twitter, guys. It just so happens to be the easiest way to contact me for prizes, and you get to see Pokemon I catch in odd places with Pokemon Go. Anyway guys, that's going to do it for this week's Friday Night Lore. If you enjoyed the video, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. If you want to help the series continue, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Patreon allows you to directly support the channel while also granting you access to unique monthly giveaways. Enter to win cards, fat packs, and even an entire booster box. With Eldritch Moon right around the corner, consider supporting the show and grabbing some giveaways in the process. Find links to my Patreon and all my social media outlets in the description below. FNL and all my giveaways are brought to you by my patrons and by ABU Games, an online source for all things MTG. Go ahead and check them out, guys. Anyway, thanks everyone so much for watching and enjoying the video. You're an awesome community. And as always, I'll see you next time.